Hello, folks. So I'm going to talk about basically what a wireframe is. All right. So when the design actually for a website starts to get or starts its whole process, there is the idea of what is called a wireframe. A wireframe is more or less a skeleton portion of a website where you get to start to think about layout. You start to think about user interaction, things that are going to be related to the whole interactive element of your design. So now, of course, with Adobe XD, you can go ahead and create wireframes pretty simple. They are more or less just putting down boxes, but starting to understand and starting to think through layout is critical when you're dealing with website development. So what we're going to have here is we have this particular website or design that I have here, which is my default 1920 by 1080 type of design in here. And if you remember, you can expand the artboard to be a little bit longer. So at this point, what we can do is we can start filling in certain areas. Like if I go ahead and put this in, I may go ahead and start to colorize this a little bit more. So if I were to, let's say, fill it with a dark gray, let's say we have this here. A lot of times what some designers will do is they'll do this dark gray to kind of like give an impression of some kind of background color or maybe a background photo of some kind to give that some substance in that particular area. So what I'm going to do is I'll go ahead and start to add in some elements. Like let's say, for instance, I go ahead and create, maybe I'll know that I'm going to put a logo here. Maybe I go ahead and put in more boxes that may relate to maybe navigation wise. So if I take this, I can go ahead and I can copy and paste. And what it will do is it will go ahead and give me another one. Now, some cases, what you can do is you can use the Alt key on Windows. You can use I think it's the Option key on a Mac, to go ahead and create copies, just by holding down the Alt key or the Option key to kind of like move things around. Now, I can select each one of these particular elements, and let's say I want to go ahead and kind of like distribute the space in between here kind of like evenly. So off to the right at the very top, you're going to find there's a distribute horizontally icon, which will go ahead and look at the space and make things look a little bit nicer. So those might actually represent my buttons in my design. Now, what if I wanted some kind of like maybe a picture right here or something like that I know I'm going to put in there? Maybe I'll go ahead and well, maybe there's actually some bigger headline. Let's just do that. So maybe there's a bigger headline because there's a big picture of me behind there. And then maybe I include some kind of button, for instance, for that. Now, what you can do is start to look at these and start to think about each of these sections, for instance. Like, what if we had, like, in particular, this design, and we had, like, maybe a picture here. We're going to fill that with some kind of, like, kind of like another, light gray, for instance, there. And then maybe we go ahead and put in maybe some text that's underneath this, that refers to kind of like more text oriented. We're going to go ahead and align those so they're centered. And then I'll go ahead and make copies of this one here and another one, maybe 3. All right. So what we can do is we can kind of align those and distribute the horizontal and kind of do the same thing here. I'll align these towards the top. Maybe I'll go ahead and center that. And do that there. So I've got a nice layout that's actually starting to form here. These types of things are really good for when you go ahead and start creating more of the designs that you're going to be working with, to kind of give more of an overall impression, more or less how the site's going to lay out. So you may have like a bigger headline here, maybe a few small ones. Then we can go ahead and create different, copies of. Maybe we make them a little bit longer. I'll zoom in a little bit, so I can make this a little bit longer. Make it look like text. All right, and then maybe here, maybe we have like some kind of picture collage here with a bunch of circles and maybe some people in there or whatever. So the idea here is kind of like starting to think about, okay, well, how is the site going to lay out? And it's like, for instance, here, maybe this is the actual footer of the actual site. So maybe this goes a little bit darker. Maybe I'm going to use like a darker color for that. And then there's a bunch of little, maybe some smaller text here. Maybe there might be some links there. Maybe it's an address, a location, all that kind of stuff. I'll distribute horizontal. And then I'll go ahead and create a couple more things here. Maybe we put some social media icons there. Right. Just like so. All right. So you can kind of see that this forms like a kind of like a wireframe, or an overall kind of like impression of what the site might actually look like, from a viewer's point of view. It's kind of like working on thumbnails, right into the software. Bring this one up front. Go to object, arrange, bring to front. Start to think of that, like how's that site going to play out. So from here, what I can do is I can go ahead and go to my artboard tool, and what I can do is just add another one. All right, and at that point, I can go ahead and look at certain things. So I know, for instance, that maybe there's certain things that will carry over to this particular side. So I will take that and I will duplicate that one, just using my alt key on a Windows platform, Option on another. So I might bring this up here, making sure that the logo and the navigation always stay the same, because that again tends to want to interact throughout every page. So here it's like, what if we went ahead and created these, like, boxes? For instance, here, maybe this is a picture box or whatever. Go a light gray. Maybe headline here. Darker one, and then later ones. All right, and since that's there, I'm going to go ahead and Alt Option, kind of like give more of a text type of view. Zoom in so I can pull on these. So I can make it look a little bit more staggered. Looks like text that's being written there with a headline. You know, and then here it's like, what if we went ahead and duplicated that? And maybe I wanted to go ahead and kind of like reverse that. Move that over here and move this over here. And maybe, for instance, that is a section that kind of like separates off from the rest of from the other section. So maybe this is kind of like a darker gray. And then I go up to Object, Arrange, Send to Back. All right. So essentially what I'm doing is I'm creating these like little wireframes that will allow me to kind of like visually kind of see how things are turning out, how they're actually being built. Because what you want to do is this little dotted line actually forms a very useful task. When you're dealing with scrolling, you always want things that are, there's a term in web design that's called above the fold. So what you want to do is if you go to any kind of website or a phone or whatever like that, you want to be able to actually have things show up initially. Things that show up above the fold, which means that basically when you go to a website, you always see the top of the page first. So this is what I'm referring to, is that little dotted line refers to that scroll line, or in NXT it's a scroll line, but anything above that is going to be seen first. So with the home page, which is right here, that's important. For any other page, maybe not as important. Like we see here, part of the picture is cut off, part of this is seen, and that's fine. That'll lead somebody through it. As long as the navigation up at the top is seen, that is what is important. So hopefully that kind of helped out a little bit, because what you can do is kind of like create these different layouts. And if you notice that a lot of these layouts in website design are very, very grid oriented, where layouts are very lined up, and that is critical. You don't want items all over the place throughout the whole page. Things need to have some kind of organization, whether it's within the space, whether it's lined up with other things. You have to look at that in terms of designing for a website. All right, so hopefully that helped out a little bit. I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.